Ho, ho, ho. Merry Draftmas Eve to you folks. Welcome to another episode of the Cover One Film Room, brought to you, of course, by the Cover One Sports Network. I'm one of your two hosts this evening, Anthony Prohaska, joined by a returning Eric Turner, who was on vacation for the past couple of weeks. We haven't been live in 2 weeks. We had an episode 2 weeks ago where we did a mock draft that we recorded earlier in the week and then posted it. But this is the first live episode of the Film Room in a couple of weeks, and it comes the night before the draft. There's buzz in the air. There's draft mist. There's good tidings. There's whatever the draft equivalent of mistletoe is hung up everywhere. It's a fun time. Eric, welcome back from your vacation. How you feeling? Are you excited? Are you ready to go? Or are you just like, the draft doesn't matter. Who cares?
I'm ready. I'm ready for the draft. I'm ready to be done with all the narratives, all the stories, all the speculation. Again, this is fun for us film junkies because for many months now, we've been projecting a lot of these players, what they would look like on the Bills team the last, few months. And now the draft is finally here. And honestly, my favorite portion is right after they make their picks, because immediately what I go to, I know you guys are going to be doing some live stuff for every night of the draft. But for me, I like to relax, sit on the couch, enjoy the draft. And as soon as they make that pick, give reactions into the Slack channel and whatnot, but then get right to the film, pull that up, because that's when more work starts for guys like us. Usually I do videos or written content when it comes to who the Bills choose. We're going to have a ton of different content, whether it's reactions, again, live draft content. You guys are going to be putting on a show every night, written content. We're going to have it all. So it's all here. I'm happy it's here. It's exciting, and I just can't wait to see what moves Brandon Beane makes and what choices in the draft he goes with, because it's been a long time coming. It's been a long off season for Bills fans.
Can't wait to see the Bills draft guys that we've got like no video of and have done no work on to be like, oh, great. Like the one person we didn't look at, that's right? The guy like you took. But no, I'm in a very similar boat. I am, what's funny too? Like I was debating doing I love doing the live show pieces the night of. And I was like, man, should I not? And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let it come to me. And as I said that, Tilt DM me and was like, hey, you're still down to do the live show again? I was like, well, that's a sign. Yeah, I'm in. I'm in. I thought it literally was like, I was like, yeah, I'm in. Because I thought I was like, you know what? I just kind of want to sit back, have some pizza and some pop and just watch. And then this guy got grabbed. Let me grab some video clips that I have from, even if it's not for the Bills, like for this team, and post this and put this up, or start grabbing film. And I couldn't help it, got to do the live shows. And, it's an exciting piece to, be able to see the potential for the players that are going to be drafted by the Bills. And it's not just, pie in the sky. It's actual names and actual, roster spots that are going to start to be locked up. But before we start to dive into our targets and who we want to see from a scheme fit perspective and skill set perspective in terms of a bit of a wish list. Oh, before I even get into that, we got to stop. White Towns is one of our consistent viewers. He's a consistent donator from the super chat perspective. Thank you very much for being here, man. Thank you very much for the super chat. He says Eric has been spending time with Gabe Davis and has been forgetting about us small people. Laugh out loud. Best time of the year, guys. Go Bills.
Ooh, yeah, White Towns, you're right. I was down and it was a family vacation initially, started it that way in Clearwater. And of course, Gabe, Bert from the Draft Academy and several other players, they train in Orlando, and that's like a 3-hour drive. And where I live now in upstate New York, there's no traffic. Well, to get to Orlando, it took me like 3.5 hours and sitting in traffic. For some reason, like every 15 minutes, there's a traffic jam, but then there's no reason behind it. There's no explanation. And so
my favorite thing with Florida traffic is you'll just be driving and all of a sudden there's just so many abandoned cars on the highway and throughway. And they're just but they're not broken down. They're like a Ford F-150 and it's just abandoned on the highway. And you're like, what the hell? It's just so random down there.
Sophia, thank you for that as well. We appreciate it. She says, Merry Draftmas Eve. Go Bills. Appreciate it. But yeah, it was fun. I got to go down there, watch them train. It was Gabe Davis, Leonard Fournette, Javian Elliott, who is a DB that's going to be playing for Hamilton, I think, in the Canadian League.
Ooh, the Tiger Cats.
Yep. And who else did I see down there? Latavius Murray was supposed to be down there on this Friday, but he was actually in Buffalo like the day before, and so he wasn't able to make it out there for their training session. He trains with them as well in Orlando. It was on the UCF campus, really, really hot, damn near 90 degrees, humid. I was enjoying it, but watching Gabe Davis and those guys running around full speed in all black was crazy. They put in a lot of work. I'm excited to see, obviously Gabe Davis this year in a contract year, but it was fun hanging out with them. And we got some things coming with them, and I'm excited about the future. But Y-Towns, appreciate that. Appreciate bring that up. And I'm just glad to be back, man. I did get a little sun, but I'm glad to be back and talking football with you guys.
You mentioned, Y-Towns mentioned Gabe Davis, and you spoke about him a bit. And that's a position we're going to kind of start with here in this episode. Before we really get into the nitty gritty of the draft pieces, Erik, much like the last time we did a live episode here in the film room, there was DeAndre Hopkins rumors. And now we sit here on Draftmas Eve, and there just continues to be this DeAndre Hopkins smoke, whether it's legitimate, whether it's not, whether it's agent driven, or wherever the source point really is located. We continue to see a lot of buzz, whether it's from Hopkins himself, whether it's from Pac-Man Jones, the Pat McAfee show, all these things. I would say everything. There seems to be a different development in the DeAndre Hopkins sweepstakes every single day as we get closer to the draft. It's the Bills and it's the Chiefs today. Like some rumors about the Giants being a potential suitor and candidate start to emerge. But let's look at it from a draft perspective. If the Bills were to land DeAndre Hopkins this week at some point in this draft weekend starting tomorrow, how do you think that shakes up not only the draft needs, but potentially if there's pick swaps involved, it could change the draft order. It changes, if you change the order for the Bills, that obviously changes where you are based on how the board is falling. You have potentially removed a need at wide receiver, potentially, if you've required DeAndre Hopkins. What goes through your mind when you start to think of the draft ramifications for the draft itself if the Bills were to acquire DeAndre Hopkins?
Well, the thing that's been talked about today has been, swapping of picks, going for the Bills going from 27 to 34, getting Hopkins and just moving back a little bit. And I honestly like that move from top to bottom. You're moving back, which is something being talked about doing anyways, that if he were a betting man, that would probably be the route he would go. And just the way the draft falls, I think that would be a smart play. And especially if you can, aside from the Hopkins thing, if you can move back to get some more picks, but if you can move back and take care of a priority like wide receiver, but also get a guy with the pull and gravitational pull that a guy like DeAndre has, that's a good move. And supposedly, again, I'm not big onto these charts and trade points and all that, what scales to use, but supposedly, in our chat, the guys were saying it's equal to like a third round pick. That's fine with me. Again, you're only going back 7 spots, and that in that slot of 34, you're probably going to go ahead and change from going after a wide receiver and maybe going after a position of need, more so like a Mike, a linebacker, or something along those lines. So I do like how that would fall, but I don't think the Bills want to make that move, and they haven't made that move yet because they want to see who's on the board at that time. If one of their top receivers is in striking distance for them to move up, or just staying there and that guy's going to show up at 27, I think they just stay. I think they stay, they get that contract, that 5-year contract with that receiver, and they go about their business. But if for some reason one of their top guys isn't there, I'd say probably it's likely between Zay Flowers or Jordan Addison. If those guys are both off the board, by all means, move back 7 spots, get D-Hop, and then go ahead and switch to your position need, which is linebacker, or any other need positions. I don't think you would draft a wide receiver after going in D-Hop. And so the other thing that's going to come to mind, and people are going to ask, like, when you have Diggs and Hopkins on the team, what kind of issues can arise? Will issues arise? And are there enough balls to go around for 2 ego-driven guys that want the ball in those crunch moments? What are your thoughts on that?
We talked about it a bit when we broke down some Hop film here in the Cover One film room. And I think based on what we saw last year, I know Diggs commands a heavy target share, but with the nature of this offense, with the trigger man in Josh Allen, combined with also, for better or for worse, we'll see what he looks like in year 2, but, combined with an aggressively minded offensive coordinator in Ken Dorsey, I think they'd be able to strike a balance. What that balance is, I don't think we're going to know until we see how things play out. But Stefon Diggs generally has been an okay guy. If he's getting like 5 or 6 targets in a game, but the Bills win, he's not a troublemaker. I think he's decently shed the diva moniker. I think based on the game plan, based on the matchup, I think there's enough targets to go around, whether, you're rotating kind of week to week or how it adds up in the end. I would think, though, there would be ramifications for everyone else on the team from a targets perspective, like down the rest of the food chain. Like Stefon Diggs is a target monster and dominates that share. I would expect him to stay as that target monster and that leader, but I would think Hop would get a significant uptick as like the number 2 target share guy. And then you're looking at everybody else kind of, I don't want to use this verbiage, but almost kind of like fighting for scraps amongst the Dawson Knoxes, the Gabriel Davises, Deontay Hardy, which I potentially like for that as well, because now you've got guys who are in that 3rd receiver spot or 4th receiver spot, like Khalil Shakir and Hardy or even Sherfield. And now you can kind of play more like chess matches with those guys, and you don't have to rely on them as heavily. You don't have to take a Hardy and be like, hey, man, we really need you to be healthy this year. Hey, Khalil Shakir, we really need you to take a jump in year 2. Now you can lighten the workload for guys with some injury concerns. You can allow for, development in the system for a Khalil Shakir. So I'm not worried from a Diggs or Hopkins perspective from a target share piece, but I do think there would be ramifications for everyone else, down the rest of the food chain, because both of those guys are going to command targets as they should, which means, guys are going to have less for themselves, which kind of long-term might maybe that works in the Bills' favor, because maybe Gabe Davis doesn't get a lot of work, and then teams are like, man, he didn't do anything this past year. And the Bills are like, sweet, you're on a discount. Come on back.
Yeah, right. I'm just excited thinking about 11 personnel with Diggs, Hopkins, and Davis, because Hopkins and Diggs can work the slot, and they're 2 heady football players who know how to read coverages pre to post snap. They're also a couple dogs who aren't scared to go into that hook to curl area, over the middle of the field, in those windows, catch the ball and take a hit. I just think they become scarier over the middle, which is something we've been preaching for several months now, is controlling the middle of the field with possession type receivers. The Bills have missed that, especially from a volume sense, since Cole Beasley has kind of been on the decline and off the roster. I think that has definitely been missed. And yes, I think if you have a guy like Hopkins or Diggs working that middle more, but also it opens up things, as you said, for those other guys where, hey, it might be scraps. It might be a smaller target percentage, but it's going to be maximized more because they're going to have better looks because of those other dogs, right? So I think that's the delicate balance. And as that, said in the comments, I want that problem. I want that issue. I want that kind of problem. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I understand the contract and financial ramifications. They would have to, move some things around. But again, if they're talking to Hopkins, his team and the Cardinals, they have an understanding when it comes to the contract. And you know what? That whatever team he goes to, that may be settled already and in place. Okay. What they're waiting for, or these teams are waiting for, is how the board falls. And then maybe the price of it, whether it's, a 3rd round pick, 4th round pick, or just swap of picks. That stuff is probably in place already with several teams, but then they're just waiting for the draft to unfold. That's why this draft may be so exciting for Bills fans, because you have, this D-Hop stuff that is probably going to unfold, as Pac-Man Jones said, either tonight or tomorrow, or I'd say at the latest Friday, because I think, beyond Friday, then some of those picks probably aren't going to be worth the move for the Cardinals.
Yeah, then it starts to get into kind of worrisome territory for the Cards. And I'm right there with you on kind of the Bills hedging their bets. Like, you don't need to make that move Monday or Tuesday or today. Like, go into the draft. And granted, maybe there's some risk. Maybe somebody else, has the opportunity to beat you to DeAndre Hopkins, but you let the draft board come to you. Like, maybe there isn't a run on wide receivers, and the only receiver that goes in the first 26 picks is Jackson Smith and Jigba, and you're sitting there at 27, and maybe Flowers and Addison are both on the board, or maybe how you're anticipating the board is falling maybe you think you could trade back from 27 and still get Josh Downs in the mid 30s or like late 30s or play some kind of game with that. Like, let the board come to you, let it fall how it may, which Bean has done before. We have that track record, but it is, man, just it is exciting to kind of play, fantasy offensive coordinator, especially for guys like us, like the X's and O's, perspective, just what you could do with, especially for someone like Gabe Davis, right, who has had such tremendous success vertically down the field, despite the fact that he's not a burner. Like, his ability to like work downfield. Now, maybe do you get more one-on-one opportunities for him downfield because DeAndre Hopkins and Stephon Diggs are commanding more coverage in the underneath or in the middle of the field? Like, the games that you can play in terms of pulling defenders out and sneaking in receivers behind them, and just all the potential opportunities and the multitude of that exist, and what you could do with, we're a big fan of motion and, and pre-snap shifts and alignments, what you can do in terms of, maybe you're showing trips and then you switch out and, oh, is Hopkins in the slot now? Oh, now Diggs is in the slot. Like, or do we, maybe Gabe Davis is in the slot, or we drop Dawson Knox off the inline tight end spot and put him into the slot. Like, there's all these schematic possibilities that exist for a guy like DeAndre Hopkins.
And and you know what? AJ brings it up. He says, taking a linebacker like Jack Campbell, Sanders, and even Simpson, to that matter, if at 34, optically looks a lot better to the organization, to fans. If you're taking a linebacker at the top of the second rather than back half of the first. We argue all the time that end of first round picks are second round grades more times than not.
Yes.
And so even if they did take him at 27, I'm not gonna make a big deal of it. But I know a lot of fans will. That's just the world we live in now with mock draft simulators.
I hate that, because there's been so Bijan is the example of it. People are like, I don't want to run him back in the first round. Like, but if the Bills are, I don't want him at 27, but if the Bills were to get him at like, trade back and get him at like 34, I'd be cool. I'd be like, 7 spots are going to change your mind just because it's got.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
I made the joke last year when people were upset about Terrell Bernard. Like, once the Bills got Shakir, I was like, just pretend the Bills got Shakir in the 3rd and Bernard in the 5th, and everything like looks better. And people were like, oh, that actually does make me feel a little better. But it's funny, like the optics of it, especially for a position where the Bills have a need at linebacker. But as we've talked a bunch on this show, we've talked in text and in the Twitter DMs, like, this unfortunately is not the draft to need a linebacker. They're not the sexiest group as a whole. Even the guys at the top all have different level of concern, the schematic fits for teams, but especially the Bills. And yeah, I think a lot of fans would be, it's so funny to say that, would be so much more comfortable being like, you know what? The Bills took Campbell at 27. I hate it. But it'd be like, the Bills took Campbell at 34. I love it. What a great pick. It's like, are we really doing this?
Especially if you added D-Hop to that. Oh my gosh.
You just
Bean is back on top again, right? Like, he's not being thrown under the bus for some early round picks that, like it would flip it on his head. It would flip everything.
This entire offseason. Big baller Bean is back.
He's a wizard again.
He's a wizard. Fire up all the or especially if it happened like after night 1, late at night, you get more like hashtag Bean after dark, and everybody's vibing and digging it all again. Yeah, everybody would flip immediately. And again, it's understandable. Like, Hopkins is a sexy name. He's a proven dude. There's less projection involved with it. Like, and even people who don't know X's and O's and schematic pieces, like, they know Hop is still probably like a low end at worst wide receiver 1, high end 2, and you're pairing him with a Stephon Diggs and an offense with Josh Allen. Like, oh, I like Thomas. Thomas says Campbell no matter what. Ooh, the linebacker group is spicy. Like, I feel like people have turned on Jack Campbell and are more like Drew Sanders now. Like,
the thing I don't understand though, Ant, is this thought that Campbell is bad in coverage. I don't know where that came from. Like, especially like if you're trying to transition or translate his game into the Bills scheme, it's flawless. The transition is going to be flawless when it comes to coverage and leverage and how to play those gray areas and zone coverage. Like, he's the perfect fit.
Yep.
Versus Sanders, who, again, some of his draw is the versatility and playing edge. And the Bills could use that on third downs with Von Miller out half the year. I see the value in that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to coverage, he's still got a ways to go. And Sanders is at his best up at near the line of scrimmage. He's more of that rat player near the line of scrimmage, not necessarily range guy out in the zone a little more. He's got a long way to go in that regard. I just don't know where this this talk about Campbell not being good in coverage. When it comes to pattern matching, like he recognizes, he's pointing out route combination. I don't know. I don't know where that came from.
It
just baffles me.
He's out there like mirroring tight ends and running backs. And yeah, like the pattern matching piece is something that doesn't always happen with regularity at the college level. Or if it does, it's not happening to that level that Campbell operates on. And yeah, he's picking up slot receivers. He's picking up tight ends. Like there's one, so many people love Charlie Jones, the receiver for Purdue. And one of my favorite match reps for Campbell is Campbell literally like matches with Charlie Jones. Jones tries to hit him with a little stutter on a move over the middle, and Campbell does not fall for it and is all over him. Jones catches it, and Campbell closes and drops him in the open field for like a 2 or 3 yard gain on 1st and 10. And you see that with regularity. Or throw up the clip of his interception against CJ Stroud against Ohio State, like him rotating and looking and reading everything and then drop it. And then the athleticism to get that paw up in the air, deflect the ball to himself, come down with it. Like it's funny too with that narrative. Like he has this great testing week at the combine and everybody's like, he's such an athletic marvel. Like he's going to be great. He's so good in coverage. And as we've gotten closer, everybody's like, nope, he actually sucks in coverage.
Yeah. That was terrible. A swing, right?
Yeah.
Like initially I'll admit, like I was watching his testing closely because I thought he had some short area quickness, but I wanted to see what type of range he had. And you know, when he tested, I'm like, man, I didn't think he was that athletic.
Same.
But I will say there are times on film where you do see flashes of it, but I just don't think you saw it enough. But that doesn't mean it's not there. It doesn't mean that it won't be utilized in the Bills scheme. The Iowa defense plays a very similar scheme. They play a lot of cover 2, a lot of quarters coverage, a lot of trapping coverages, so a lot of 2 high shells. And he's so good in that type of scheme. You could easily say that maybe he's not as scheme versatile as a guy like Drew Sanders because of some of the stuff that he brings. But when you're talking about the Bills, you can't find a better prospect on the field and off the field than Jack Campbell. I can't find one.
If you were trying to, now again, maybe for all we know, and this is something we talked about, Erik, like maybe the Bills are thinking of going in a different direction with that linebacker spot in this defense. Maybe, you know, they are looking to play more, 3 safety sets on 3rd down and use Taylor Rapp as a dime linebacker. And, maybe Drew Sanders makes more sense then because you kick him down to edge and yada, yada, and all these pieces. But if you were looking to try and mitigate the loss of Tremaine Edmunds and fill that role, there's no one better in this draft than Jack Campbell. This is that interception, or maybe not. Yeah, I think that is the interception.
Yeah, this is it.
You've broken it down. Like, go ahead, take it away. But he sucks in coverage. I can't do it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, initially you see him circled right there, processing, run the pass, runs coming at him. He's got to come downhill. So he realizes, oh, it's a pass. So now he's looking out to his left. He sees a quarterback also looking out that way. And it's only a 2-man route. There's a guy to his left, and then and I think there's actually 2 guys at his left. So now he's getting depth right here. He sees that pressure coming, and Stroud slides to his left. So he opens up to the right and looks to the right, but there's no one over there. There's only 2 receivers in a route, but they're all to one side of the field. So now he just feels it. He senses quarterback's getting ready to throw, gets his eyes on the quarterback, and then just watch how reactive he is. Boom, moves those feet, ball's coming inside. He goes and finds it, gets the interception. So his processing is phenomenal, especially when you talk about and comparing him to Tremaine Edmunds. Like, he's further ahead in the run and pass sort of things when it comes to processing, especially in the run. I think he's well ahead in that regard, but he may not have as much range as Tremaine, but this type of stuff, reading the play, reading the quarterback, reading the route concepts, his play speed is ridiculous. And it flashes on this play, and you see it a lot on this film.
Yeah. And I think to drive things home for people, like what you're seeing him do in this clip where he's reading, so he reads run and then realizes it's a pass. When he peeks right here to the left, that doesn't necessarily happen even at the pro level. Like, you'll see guys realize like, oh crap, I got. Let me just get my eyes on the quarterback and just get depth and try and get into the zone. He's not just like blindly moving like a robot. He's actually processing. He's reading. You saw and you highlighted him with him looking to the left, and then he reads Stroud, and then he looks to the right like you highlighted. Oh, there's no target to the right. Cool. Let me get my eyes back on the quarterback and then gain depth and get into his field of vision. and he makes this pick. Like, this is all because of processing, the instincts, the football IQ, and the high football functionality that he has mentally. And then you tie it together with the athleticism. Like, I don't think he plays to the RAS score that he had from the combine. I don't think he's this athletic marvel, but he's plenty athletic, especially for his size at like 6'5", 249 pounds. Dude can move. I don't know. It's just
Do you watch clips or do you watch all 22, Anthony?
Oh, I didn't know that was an actual question. I thought we were just
That's an actual question up on the screen right now.
Oh, full full. I can't even answer it correctly. Full all 22. There is There's no
not
clip.
Just highlights.
Yeah, no, not over here. Not over here.
Wrong show. You might have to check the other show.
Maybe wrong brand, like wrong show. Maybe. Yeah, it's okay. For that, that's very fair. It happens though. Yeah, it's funny too. Like, and I don't know if it's because it's the same thing with like Will Anderson. Like, Will Anderson has another good year, and as the draft process has gone on, people are like, nope, he actually sucks. I'd take all these other edges over him. Like, I don't know if it's somebody gets this hype and this buzz and is like up on top, and as they stay up on top longer, people start to hate him. It's just funny to see people turn almost at the drop of a hat. Like, less than a month ago, everybody was all aboard the Jack Campbell train.
Right.
And you would have thought it would have gotten stronger because of how good the tape is. But instead, the stock has dropped.
Yeah. So he's a guy that, yes, I think if they were to move back, get D-Hop, move to 34, he's prime right there. That's a great spot for him. I personally have a second round grade for him, a top of the second round grade. So it's perfect. So it makes sense. Even if they were to go at 27, take him, it makes sense. But yeah, I would like to see them go receiver and somehow go get their linebacker in the next round. But I think moving back to 34 with that swap with Arizona would work for him, would work for Drew Sanders. A lot of smoke with Drew Sanders here recently. But who's a guy that you think, let's transition to guys that, we think may be available, maybe scheme fits at 27, because that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Some guys that we think are scheme fits, some of our guys that we pound the table for in and around the positions that the Bills pick. Who's the first guy you want to talk about?
Ooh, let's flip the side. Let's go on the offensive side.
Okay.
There's somebody who, and I feel like as soon as I say the name, everybody who's watched the show is going to be like, well, that tracks and that makes sense. I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue to pound the table for Darnell Wright. Just what he is as a player at his size, the athleticism and his ability to move at 6'5", 330, 340 plus, his ability to anchor versus speed to power. And even when he needs some work there, like, he's still improving. Like, and I think that's the conversation too. I think people, I don't know. I feel like he started to get a rep of being like a low ceiling guy. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think he brings a strong floor to beat out Spencer Brown, but also has the ceiling to continue to grow and continue to get better. He's an athletic grizzly bear. He's more athletic than he has any right being. But like a lot of guys coming out, he'll be inconsistent with his hand placement at times. His footwork at times can get a little messy. You're seeing how clean when it works here against a guy like Will Anderson, and this is the tape that everyone points to, but when it works, it really works. Like, he had a very good game here against Bama, against Will Anderson, against Dallas Turner, very similar against LSU and against all these teams that have good athletic edge rushers, whether it's guys with bend, whether it's guys with speed to power or physicality. Like, and Erik, we've talked about this on the show. We talked about it at the Senior Bowl. When I asked him, how he watches film, he talks about, he studies guys, puts them into buckets based on their skill sets, practices for those skill sets. He just has a very professional approach to the game. You match it with the physical, athletic ability and some of the technicality. He's got one of the best snatch and traps in the entire draft, might even have the best one, has enough movement to, function on dart and those tackle wrap plays. And I still think he has a ceiling to reach. I'm still gonna, bang the drum for him in a wish list perspective, along with some other tackles. And I saw that comment there from, this is it. This is the one. I'm behind the camera, so you can't see me. This was just an awesome answer from him.
This was awesome when you asked about, some of his habits and film habits and studying. And I always say this because I want to give you credit for this, because you asked him this at the Senior Bowl, and like a couple days later, Daniel Jeremiah got the same answer. And I was like, sorry, man. Pro Ant got you. He
I
beat
got
you
you,
to the
Jeremiah.
scoop. He beat you to the scoop. So I'll play this. It's only 30 seconds, but I thought it was so enlightening, especially now. Like when we were there, everyone was talking, oh, he's a great second round pick. We were like, hold on. After that first year, we're like, this dude's a first round pick. What are the people talking about?
Yep.
And you're hearing a lot of negatives about him right now. And I don't know the truth, where the truth lies about him as a player, but there's been a lot of character concerns with him over the last week or so. And so going back to this at this moment, the night before the draft, is interesting to listen to and watch. So let's let this play here. And again, sit back and listen to this guy, because there's a lot to his game on the field, but a lot of it also occurs from the shoulders up.
I have a little way I break down, kind of put people into a couple categories. Like, so I have 3 categories. I'll go speed, power, and finesse.
Okay.
And throughout the week, I'll just kind of watch people, and then as Tuesday and Wednesday, that's our work weeks in college. So Tuesday, Wednesday rolls around, I'll try to at least have an idea of what categories those guys in. Like, for example, I may put somebody into the speed and finesse category. So throughout the week, all of my sets and everything in practice, I'll try to mimic that throughout the week.
I've seen those reports come out about like character concerns, or like a lot of it tied to like his work ethic and how he approaches the game. And where I do believe, where there's smoke, there is fire. And if you're getting that type of reporting from several different scouts or several different teams, like I don't think you can completely dismiss it. But I was genuinely like taken aback by some of it, because his answer there, like, Erik, you've talked to college prospects before, and like that's not a regular college answer. Like, that's a professional approach to the game of football, and he's operating with that already. So I was definitely kind of and maybe this is something he did more as the year went on. Maybe he got mature and changed, and maybe some of the things that people were talking about were earlier in the 2022 season. But yeah, I was genuinely surprised to hear those work ethic concerns, because that answer blew me away. And then you see his production on the field, and you're like, oh, it makes sense. Like, for him to perform at that level, of course he's preparing in this manner.
Yeah, and that's what is cool about the Senior Bowl. That's the small opportunity that we have to get to know some of these players off the field, which, when it comes to evaluation, that's a huge part of the evaluation. Getting to know the character of these players in that short amount of time on those limited meetings. But it's cool for us because we're able to do it on, at the Senior Bowl as well. So that was surprising to hear over the last week, some of the character concerns. But when you turn on his tape, especially last year, because the year before when he was at left tackle, he was kind of up and down, but he settled in last year, especially against very good competition. And like you said, he has a variety of sets. He goes through his film differently and challenges himself during the week, so that when he gets in the game, he can react properly. He has a variety of sets, angle sets, vert sets, jump sets. I mean, back pedal. He'll show one set and then revert to another one just to see what the pass rusher does. He strings together some really nice counters, and then finishes with either that snatch trap when guys go to long arms, snatches guys to the ground, which, yes, that is a thing. Snatch trap is a real thing.
Crazy.
And then,
what a world.
And he's got a good anchor. And like you said, he's a grizzly bear. He's got really good feet. And I think he's going to get better when it comes to that. And especially against the run, he's got to exert that physicality a little more. For a guy his size, he should be moving people more. Yeah. But I also think that offense he played in, he wasn't asked to do that. So I think that's an area you'll see immediately that he's probably better than what you thought. But he still has an area to improve when it comes to moving guys, displacing guys, whether they're on angle blocks or down blocks. He can do a better job when it comes to that.
You just see like the little things, like even the subtleties of, kind of feigning throwing his hands in order to get the edge rusher to declare, and then he'll pull his hand back and either snatch you down, or he'll aggressively jump out and get you because he knows like you've just lost your leverage and you've changed based off of like trying to initially read him. And like that level of, again, the mentality of playing offensive tackle, it's nice to have the physical traits and to have the tools and to have the size and the length and the strength. But again, like we've talked about and been saying this all off season, like it's the mental side that really separates these guys. And when you hear him speak and you see how he operates and he plays, he's already got like little technical nuance and mental nuance that should, in theory, just continue to drive him up, in terms of his ability to produce at the NFL level if he's drafted by whoever he's drafted. Erik, what about you? Who's somebody that you have your eye on when it comes to the first round, especially where, if we're sticking on the offensive side, who's somebody, we mentioned a couple of the receivers. Is it one of them? Is it offensive line related? Where are you looking when it comes to that first round?
Let me ask you though, is Wright a guy? So if he's there at 27, is he the guy you're banging the table for? Is he one of your guys that you're saying, yeah, you got to go ahead and draft him?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just want to make that clear. My guy, I'm going to stick at tackle. It's someone that we've talked about. It's a pipe dream. I'll say it. Peter Skoronski.
This would also, and to say it
would be consensus. Yeah.
This would be my ideal as well.
And the reason I'm bringing him up, I don't think he'll get there at 27, but I want to preface it by saying that.
Man,
but
if he did,
I'm hoping the short arm thing is a thing for a lot of these teams. It's just weird how over the last week or so, a lot of national media have said things about Anton Harrison, moving up, and the league likes him more than a lot of the mock drafters. And same story with Paris, what's his name? Johnson from Ohio State, right? Yep. Mm-hmm. The league likes him more. So I want those guys all to get bumped up. That's what I want. Yeah, they're better tackles. They have longer arms. They're more athletic. Say all of that because I want Skoronski to fall. Will he? Probably not. But if he's one of those guys, if Bean were to move up to say 20, like he talked about, like, hey, right around 20 is when I start to realize, do I want to go up or do I want to go back? If he's near 20, he's one of the guys I would say go up and get Skoronski because I think he's got tackle and guard flexibility. He's my tackle one. I'm sure he's your tackle one as well. Incredible technician. You saw Aaron Cromer in some of the video at his pro day, at Skoronski's pro day. You saw Aaron Cromer in there, getting a good look at him, working out with him. Great movement, balance, really good with his hands. He can absorb an anchor with his hands. He uses his hands with leverage, which is scary because, again, he doesn't have long arms. And he honestly doesn't really fit a lot of the Bills or Aaron Cromer's archetypes. But that's how good of a technician he is. And it's not just with his physical abilities, but also, again, he's very heady. He has a very high football IQ on all accounts. He's a guy I would, if he falls and gets into that 20 range, go up and get him. But the Bills stay at 27. I'd say the tackle that I think they will like and kind of fits the bill is Anton Harrison from Oklahoma. You saw a lot of the video at his pro day where the Bills assistant offensive line coach, Austin Gunn, was there watching him. Harrison was coached by one of the better offensive line coaches in America, and Bill Bedenbaugh. He's 6'4", 314, 34 1/8 inch arms. So he's got that length that the Bills like and Aaron Cromer likes. I think he does have some areas of opportunity when it comes to strength and power. I think he can get stronger. And that's why I like him when it comes to bringing him on, helping him, competing with Spencer Brown, and see who wins that battle. I really like him. Very smooth in his kick slides. Plays on the insoles of his feet, which is something that, we've talked about a lot since the Senior Bowl, because you saw guys like John Michael Schmitz. You've seen Joe Tippmann's this way too. You got to be able to set a firm pocket, and playing on the insoles of your feet is something that he does really well. Bergeron's another one of those guys. Eric says, hey guys, what about Bergeron? I think he's in play here as well. But I just think Harrison has a higher ceiling. I like Bergeron. I like Bergeron more as a guard. Right? Remember the first day I was like,
yeah, you did. Guard. You literally were like, I think he'd be better at guard.
But yeah, what are your thoughts on Harrison real quick before we transition?
I echo a lot of the similar sentiments. His athleticism is impressive. The length is impressive. I like what you said about, him getting stronger. Like, I think when you look at his frame, like he could get bigger. Like I could see him pushing into the 320s or like low or mid 320s, like him thickening out a little bit more. He's got the athleticism. He's got the quickness that you like to see, his ability to climb to the second level, going to Oklahoma, he finishes really well. They're taught to finish and be mean and nasty in that regard. What excites me the most about Harrison is like he has technique pieces to clean up, hand placement and footwork and how he moves and angles to take, but he still wins despite having, like, even when he kind of quote unquote like screws up or is a bit sloppy with his footwork or doesn't time his strike or punch well, or his hand placement is off, he still has the ability to recover or win because of arm length or athleticism or bend. And you watch him hold up against other quality dudes. Like I had a big time eye on him when Oklahoma played Kansas State. He was going up against Felix Anudike-Uzomah, and he had a really nice snatch trap on him and some good technique pieces. I think he's a guy whose athleticism allows him to potentially play left or right tackle. You see his frame. He could add on more muscle. He comes from a well-coached school. I think he's a dude that, again, has enough of a floor that gets you excited, but the ceiling is really what you're banking on. I feel it's similar in a way to, I don't want to compare him to other guys in the draft, but similar to the Paris Johnson conversation and the Broderick Jones conversation. Like, you're kind of thinking of what these guys could be when they start to get closer to their ceilings. I think Harrison fits that mold as well. And I would be very comfortable and cool with him being the guy at 27, given his athleticism, the tools and traits that he brings, and what you could potentially stack on and build upon going forward.
Yeah, talking about stacking, who's the next guy that you would think in and around that range of 27 for the Bills?
So I'm going to stick in the trenches. I'm going to go to the defensive side of the ball. And my dream interior defender is in the second round. And I'm going to keep that in the bag for now. But someone who I've really come around more in terms of being a guy that I would be comfortable with at 27 is Mazi Smith from Michigan. 6'3", 337 pounds. We've talked so much about, as you bring up the film here, we talked so much about the Bills being a nickel defense and playing with light boxes and the importance of the defensive line in keeping second and third level defenders clean. And that is what he is built to do. He plays low. He's physical and powerful versus the run. He can torque offensive linemen as if he's an offensive lineman. You'll see him just use that torso strength and that abdominal strength and just torque guys off him and slam them to the ground. He's got the ability to line up on the center shade. He can be a one tack. He can be a three. You'll see him line up at a 4-eye at times. He's not the biggest pass rush productivity guy. He does have a long arm that he'll use, but because of the power that he has, he's an athletic freak, like in terms of athleticism and strength. Honestly, a lot of the Michigan guys are. You look at what Aiden Hutchinson did last year, what DJ Turner did this year, Mazi Smith, like they have a tremendous strength and conditioning program. So he's powerful, and his ability to win in the pass is because he has that power, and he has his ability to get low and extend and drive offensive linemen back. You're showing that's one of my favorite ones from Ohio State. Like, he just gets that into the guard, and you just see one quick pop. 66 overextends. Mazi gets that punch right into his chest. 66 is off platform. It's done. And Mazi gets inside. And you'll see him have reps. Erik against, number 53 there, Luke Whippler. That's the other one, a guy that we both really like.
Yeah.
He had several good, dominant reps against Whippler. And you see that kind of performance time and time again. I do think he can get a little bit better against double teams. I would like to see him anchor more and use more of that lower body strength and really be stronger at the point of attack. I don't think it's a physical strength piece. I think it's more of a play recognition and kind of playing low piece, which can be coached. So I'm okay with that. But quickness for his size, short area agility, powerful, violent hands, and shedding. I think he's somebody who I would be excited to stick into the interior of that defensive line for this year to keep the linebackers clean. And then also someone you could rely upon in 2024, where the Bills currently have no defensive tackles under contract for that year. And, as you've shown in these clips, and these clips aren't like cherry picked. They're not just grabbed to make a highlight. Like, this is play with regularity, and this is against quality offensive lines. Like Wisconsin has a quality line. Ohio State has a quality line. This game against TCU, Steve Avila, left guard number 79, who a lot of people have pegged as like a high second rounder, one of the best guards in this class. He got the better of him on several reps. And when I say gotten the better, I mean chucked him to the ground, drove him back into the quarterback's lap. The way he plays in these clips is something he operates with regularity. And I think he has the ability to be a controlling. He's not going to be a stat, monster or a raw box score kind of guy, but his play causes chaos. And I think it's a positive domino for the other players on the second and third level of a defense.
I agree. I think he's still ascending too. Some of the stuff that you may worry about with him, I'm still in that wait and see mode. I think he wasn't asked to do certain things as a pass rusher. And so I think it's there. and it's still trending up. He's as you said, a very powerful dude, naturally powerful, and he knows it. When there's shock in his hands, as I put in the video, when you see guys heads, jerk back, or their shoulder pads are elevated because of the hands of Smith. I think he's almost a perfect player for the Bills, because I think the Bills will fall in love with the type of guy he is. And again, first rounder, I could see the Bills easily taking him at 27, which is where you had, projected him in this cluster of players. But I'm going to switch sides. I'm going to go to the offensive side of the ball. I think one guy that I'll just talk about briefly that should maybe be there at 27 is Zay Flowers. I think he has that gravitational pull, even for that smaller size and that stature. He's the type of guy that you have to know where he is on the field on every play, because he could be the jet sweep guy, the gadget guy. He could be the screen guy. He can be a guy that's just running a drag route and taking it to the house. He's very violent and aggressive in his route stems. You saw pictures of Brian Gain, assistant GM of the Bills, at his pro day. And the funny thing is, his coach at BC, his wide receiver coach and the passing game coordinator is Wyatt. I think it's Darrell Wyatt. And this is important or interesting because he coached Gabe Davis at UCF. So there's a link to that. There's a relationship already there. And when you talk about getting to know these players, I think Zay Flowers is a guy that could be there at 27. I think the chances of him being there are probably slim as this process has gone on, but 29 total touchdowns, second in this class. But the guy that I do think, and just to kind of fast forward, the guy who I think will be there is Jordan Addison. I think with what he brings, I know he's a little light in his measurables, really didn't stack up all that well, and testing didn't stack up all that well. But before any of that, when you watch this film at Pitt and at USC, you're like, this he might be the best wide receiver in this class.
Yep. And
then the testing happened and it dropped him. And it's funny because it's very reminiscent of Gabe Davis. Like, hey, Bean says, I hope he runs a little slower, so he's there for us. This is the type of guy that could slide to the end of the first round and just really clean up perfectly fit for the Bills, because he's got some positional flexibility, but early on, he's exactly what the Bills need as a route runner, as a separator, thanks to his route running skills from that slot. Just imagine him, Gabe Davis, and Diggs in those 11 personnel sets. I could see him being a very good slot receiver, especially on those whip routes or those return routes. He's very good at that. So he may not have the long range that you thought he had from seeing some of those post routes and Dino posts for touchdowns, but he plays faster than that. And I know that's a buzzword and that's a cliche, but it really shows for him, especially when you compare his film to his actual testing.
Absolutely. I wanted to pull this comment from Matt because Matt says Addison's testing got me scared. I hope there's teams that feel that way in the first round and that makes him fall. Like Erik, you said it spot on, perfectly. He plays faster than he tests. And I know some people will be like, that's a cop out. The testing is what the testing is. But his craftiness as a route runner and his ability to pace his routes in the stem allows him to take advantage of the speed and the quickness that he has. Sometimes blowing by corners or safeties or, any defender, it's not always just about pure speed. To run by somebody or be fast on the field, it doesn't mean you have to be a 4.4, low 4.40 guy or a 4.3 type of guy, especially at the wide receiver position. It takes pacing. It takes the understanding of leverage and positioning and the ability to read coverage. He plays fast because of his mental ability. And I think he's got, is he a burner? No, but he has enough speed. He has enough quickness. He's a sharp route runner and a crafty route runner. And at the end of the day,
illusion of speed, right? The illusion of speed is something Shakir talked about in that interview that we covered last year. Like the illusion of speed. You may not be the fastest guy, but there are guys that are really fast that only have one speed. They don't change the speed of their routes, so they're easy to gauge. He's just the opposite. He's not the fastest guy, but he shows that illusion of speed. Like right there, you see him. He sells like he's running a crossing route right there, puts on the brakes, and he's whipping out back to the boundary. And you can see that defender is out of position, having to work over the top. That banjo coverage or switch isn't there. And he's getting in there. I think he played better with Pickett. I think there's no doubt about it, but he's reliable over the middle. As you said, he runs his routes with really good pacing, and he can still get deep. You see here, like, he can still stretch the field, for certain looks, especially shot calls. He's a well-rounded player who obviously played a lot faster on film. And I think when you talk about his transition into the Bills offense over the middle of the field like that and in the slot, he could be filthy in the Bills offense.
Yeah, he's a reliable technician at the receiver position who wins with route running and deception and football IQ and that again, I know he's smaller, but at the 170-pound mark, and he's got a thinner frame, and you can worry about some of the physicality pieces. I understand that, but really good route runners usually translate well to the NFL level. Guys with high football IQ usually translate well. This play against Stanford, against Caillou Blue Kelly, who is a corner I like, when he scores here, even just this, like the ankle flexion and the balance, because I remember I clipped it from the end zone angle. He gets tackled here. His right foot steps into the face mask of Caillou Blue Kelly, and he pulls it out, lands his other foot, and maintains his balance and go through. Like, that's a special level of ankle flexion there. And so I know some people might be like, who cares about ankle flexion? He's 170 pounds. Like, that sucks. That's important for how you get in and out of your breaks and how you operate in your stem and at the top of your route. And also, Erik, I think you posted a clip of him talking about this, or someone talking about it. His pro day performance, which was a horrible weather day at USC. Yeah, it rained. It was a horrible track. It was not ideal conditions. And I believe his quote was something along the lines of like, hey, I don't care what it is. Like, I'm going to go out there and work and kind of get the job done. And that's what he went out and did. Like, and I think that type of mentality tracks well for the Buffalo Bills from a culture perspective. Like, he just ticks a lot of boxes. Like, he separates at the stem and at the top of the routes because of his craftiness, because of his deception. I do think he's a real quality wide receiver. He's my wide receiver one in this class. Jackson Smith and Jigba, I like a lot, but I see him more as kind of a best in slot or slot only. I think Addison has some outside versatility as well that ticks him up. He's a real technician, and you pair him a little baby Stephon Diggs with Stephon Diggs. Like, imagine what his game can do. It's just a fun dynamic to add.
And this is the last part I want to talk with him. He's in the slot here. These are back-to-back clips. Watch how he makes these two routes look the same. So right here,
is the out and up and then the out?
So yeah, so right here he's bending it inside and he's just running the out route. But you see him sell almost like he's going to be running towards a safety there, and just snaps the out route there and comes back to the ball. Hey, first down. But then watch him here later in the game, right here in the slot, sell the same exact route. This is where he breaks out, right? No, he's going to the post, nods to the post. Look how wide open he is. This is what I'm talking about. He makes routes look the same. He uses pacing to his routes. That creates separation. He's a heady player. Sure, he didn't test all that well, but on the field, these are the type of players that translate well into the offense of the Buffalo Bills.
And he's got one. I got excited and I jumped the gun. He's got one against UCLA. It's literally back-to-back plays. It's a third down. He runs an out. It's like 3rd and 8. He runs the out at 10 yards, first down. They get the first down. So the next play is first down. He runs the same route from a release perspective, the stem perspective, but it's an out and up. And he just cooks the corner. And I think UCLA is playing like cover 2, honey hole shot from Caleb Williams, and first down. But he sells it. Again, he's stemming it the same way. The body lean, the head tilt, the eyes. And so everything's making that corner go like, oh, it's the out again. Let me jump it. And Addison's like, psych. And he immediately turns it upfield quickly. Like, that type of nuance and deception is tremendous at that level. And again, when you're coming in already at that level, imagine what you can be when you're surrounded by NFL players and NFL coaching. You stack and you build, and you stack and you build. He's a guy that I wonder if he's there at 27. The Giants have been potentially rumored to be interested in him. Shock that Joe Shane, is thinking on a similar wavelength as Brandon Beane, potentially given their needs, but very exciting in the first round for those possibilities and that potential. Erik, let's move on to some second round guys. Who's someone that you have tabbed in the second round as someone that, whether it's offensively, defensively, someone that you have your eye on as a wish list guy in the second round?
Second round is center, a guy that I think could play guard, and that's Joe Tippmann from Wisconsin. Aaron Cromer loves these type of guys from Wisconsin, first of all, but guys that come from offensive line type programs. I really like him as a center, but I do think he can play guard as well because of his athleticism. So most of these clips, you're going to see him number 75 at center. But I really like him for his ability to get out in the space, his ability, again, playing on the insoles of his feet, as you'll see in some of these clips. He's strong, can handle that bull rush from nose tackles because of his size. He's a bigger center. He does a great job. Yeah, he's what, 6'6"?
Yeah,
along those lines. He's really good at widening those passing lanes. When those stunts come, he shoves those spikers and loopers, and he creates that, that rushing lane. If Josh wants to take off, he could take off. Or just, again, giving him good sight lines to pass down the field. Very good at refitting his hands versus power. And in the run game, aside from just getting out into space, he can pull as a center. Obviously, as a guard, he can pull as well. But I really like his ability on those combination blocks as far as feed blocks and putting his shoulder into those guys and feeding him to his adjacent offensive lineman. He's really, really good at that. I believe AJ, you can look into this, but I'm pretty sure he was a top 30 visit too, wasn't he? Pretty sure he was a top 30 visit.
He was a top 30 visit. AJ is confirming.
Yep. So I think the Bills are very interested in him, but I think this is a Cromer guy. This is a guy I definitely would bang the table for in the second round. Protect Josh Allen, versatility, flexibility, inside, outside. I really like this player, and you can see some of these pulls. He's just driving dudes out of the box.
You don't see, man, I wish I knew like the mean height of centers, but it's definitely not 6'6".
Usually lower, yeah. It's usually smaller.
Like the 6'2" range is the ballpark.
Right.
Like he's built honestly like a tackle. Like at 6'6", like 313 pounds, like that's what he's built at. But his hip flexibility, his athleticism, his ability to function as a center at that size. Oh,
just like how he watch how he just passes this guy off. 23. Here comes the looper. Look at him. Whoop! Get out of there.
Right out there.
I mean, the quarterback gets sacked, but still.
I mean, Wisconsin's offense. He's got that football IQ to recognize games and what's happening in front of him. But then he's got the size and the strength. Like, look at him just stonewall that defender. Like, there's complete stalemate. Like, you're going.
And this is what we're talking about, like playing on the insoles of your feet. That's anchoring. Perfect. Right there. That's anchoring. We saw Schmitz do that a ton on his film. Showed it at the Senior Bowl. Whippler does it really well. I saw Scruggs do it a little bit, which the Bills are interested in him. This is the type of stuff that helps guys anchor, especially those taller guys. That drops them down a little bit, and then you see a lot of that torque and power get absorbed by the hips, core, and then the knees right there, and you see from the ground up, right? It's just that's a really good way to anchor. Yeah,
he's got that in him. Like his biggest potential, detraction for me is just because of how tall he is at that center spot. But like if he can stay when he stays low, even when he doesn't stay low, because he's got the strength and the athleticism, he can win. But you can consistently play low at that spot. Like he's just a really intriguing monster of a dude at center. Like technically, mentally, but then also like the physicality. Like you want somebody who can maul some guys inside, but who also has like the technical athleticism and footwork and hands to be able to function in pass protection. Like he's a really intriguing name. Like the center class is really fun, like with him and Schmitz and Whippler, who we talked about. And then you've got Scruggs and even somebody who I like later in the draft, like Alex Forsyth from Oregon. Like there's some quality dudes in this draft. But if you're looking towards the day ones and most likely the day twos, Tippmann is a guy who, definitely ticks boxes and is a really fun one. I'm going to stick with Wisconsin and stick in the trenches, but I'm going to go on the defensive side of the ball. Keeanu Benton, someone who just at his
talk about the Senior Bowl. Remember the Senior Bowl? Like, whoa, was he opening eyes down there or what?
So he was a guy who I hadn't watched going into the Senior Bowl. And as the first day progressed, like, I mean, it's hard not to notice him. He's huge, like 6'4", 350 pounds. And then he's got that big Wisconsin helmet with the giant W. And you just keep seeing that W like flash and flash and flash. And he's such an ideal fit for the Bills with his size and what the Bills need. Oh, yeah, it's one of my clips. His size and what he can do, but his ability to function, here he's lined up over the center in a 0 tech, but you'll see him line up as a 1 tech. You'll see him line up as a 2, as a 3. This one I like. He doesn't let the center get across his face.
Yeah.
He beats him to the spot, gets hands on him, and then just stays right in the hole, gets some extension, gets penetration, and makes the play in the backfield. He's got the ability to both gum up the works, but also get penetration. And you don't see that a lot, especially, again, at his size at 6'4", 315 pounds. He'll use just general quickness and beat a guy to a spot like he does on this play. You'll see him use a swim move, an arm over, a rip. He's got twitch and quickness, which, again, should not be available for a guy at that size. And also his ability to keep second-level defenders clean versus the run. Here's another clip of him. He's between the center and the right guard there. Look at, just look. I don't even like
club,
dude. Like, and it's so fast. And what's nice about this one too is, so in this game, he was starting to get, he was occupying his man. It wasn't a ton of penetration initially against Michigan State. So leading up to this play, he was winning, by getting low and attacking his man. So I feel like in this one, the center anticipated that and was like, let me get out of my stance. Let me get low. And Benton was like, psych, and just club and is past him in a heartbeat. That move right there, it happens against Michigan State. It happens against Northwestern. It happens against Illinois. Like that's,
and this is what we saw at the Senior Bowl. When this type of physicality and violence, his hands, he plays with such violence in his hands. And a lot of times it's these club moves when he's at a 0 tech, when there's a run stunt and he's able to slant inside. He just comes with that physicality. But as you said, he's got the size to occupy as well. He's decent at it. It's not maybe his strength, but he can do it. And he plays with good leverage, being a former wrestler. So Sean McDermott likes him.
Absolutely. Wrestler automatically makes him a draftable guy for the Bills. And I like how you phrase that, like, because occupying defenders isn't necessarily going to be a strong suit, but he can do it. And the level at which he does it, when paired with his number 1 strong suit, which is penetration. Here's another one too. Like, this one is just him reading the play that's going on in front of him. He gets first contact. You see him immediately extend, and then watch how quick the hands are as he quickly disengages. It's boom. Yeah. Quick little arm over, boom, into the backfield, heats up the quarterback, forces the incompletion. You got some twitch, you got some quickness, you have some size, you have some strength, layers. There's a lot to like. This one, his clips are so fun. Like here he is again, this time lined up directly over the center. Watch the lateral agility on the snap. So he goes from the center to the guard, extends, quick little, push pull, gets underneath him, and is by in the blink of an eye, or quicker than a heartbeat, and gets into the backfield, heats up the quarterback. And some stats for people, just in case you want to be like, oh yeah, but what does he look like from a stats perspective? Well, I got you covered. Of the 204 interior defensive linemen that had 50% of pass rush snaps last year, again, 204, Keeanu Benton was tied for 3rd in PFF's pass rush productivity metric, a formula that combines sacks, hits, and hurries relative to how many times they rush the passer. So he was 3rd out of 204 interior defensive linemen in pass rush productivity. He was also tied for 4th in QB hits. He was tied for 5th in pass rush productivity and true pass sets. He was 7th in run stop percentage out of the 216 qualifying interior defensive linemen. And he had an average depth of tackle of 0.8 versus the run. He
plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage, is what
absolutely.
You're telling me.
And I don't know, because we only watch clips. Do the Bills defensive linemen like to play that way? Do they like to get penetration and play on the other side of the line of scrimmage?
Oh yeah. I mean, especially when you're talking from the nose tackle position, Daquan Jones, he's got very similar type stats where he plays up the field. And he's also not the biggest guy. He actually plays in the 315 range. A lot of people think he's in the 330 range, but he actually plays 315. That's confirmed from himself. And Benton's that same kind of way. Again, that he's got that club move, just like Daquan uses. Like, he's very similar when you're talking nose tackles, but I do think he has some versatility to bump out into 3 tech, into some of those 4 eye techs. He's got that type of athleticism. But I'm going to switch to a defensive end. I know a lot of Bills fans probably like, why are you wasting time on DN? The Bills have drafted several of them. They've invested. I agree. But there's one guy I just couldn't take him off the list because I think he's really what the Bills are looking for. If we're looking for another DN, you got to think about Epinesa, right? He's in his final year.
Yes.
And he's been more of a sub package type pass rusher.
Absolutely.
He hasn't come along as a run stopper or played as well as a run stopper, which I thought he would early on. But a lot of that has to do with what they asked and how they asked him to change his body. But the guy I thought that, would really fit for the Bills if they were to target a guy at edge in that round 2 area, that's Foskey, Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame. He's a captain coming from Notre Dame, does a great job. And you see some of my notes there, ricochets off pullers to make the tackle, disposes of tight ends. He's one of those guys, kind of like Shaq Lawson, that just takes care of tight ends and eats their lunch. Very good long arm. I like his pass rush moves. He's got a really good long arm, and then he's got some counters off of that and transitions. He's a guy that the Bills like because senior, he played a lot of football, 85 total pressures, 27 sacks. He's a guy at the Senior Bowl. I saw Brian Gain getting a nice long look at Foskey and some of those run defense drills in the corner of the end zone. He's a player I just wanted to mention. I think he would really fit what the Bills are looking for at edge, some of their archetypes, and super productive guy that can also rush a passer. I think he'd be a great fit if they're looking at an end. But the guy that we both love, and I think that BillsMafia has really grown to love over the last week or so on the other side of the ball, is UNC wide receiver Josh Downs. So let me hear some of your thoughts on him while I bring up the film, and I'll share my 2 cents on him.
You really hit it this week with some video package stuff in terms of comparing him to Cole Beasley. And I think if anybody had any doubt, that should have solidified it for him. He's just such a crafty route runner, and how he's a crafty and unique route runner, and how he paces his routes, his understanding of leverage, his understanding of coverage, his understanding of how to put defenders into conflict positions or disadvantageous positions. It's just consistent. And I know he's, on the smaller end of the spectrum, but he plays a lot bigger than he may seem. Out of 113 wide receivers in 2022 that had 50% of targets, he was second in contested catch percentage at 72.2%. He caught 13 out of 18 contested throws. And as you play some clips here and we dive into the tape, I'll just mention a couple other stats. 63 qualifying receivers for this next category here versus man coverage. Out of these 63 wide receivers, he was first in reception percentage at 82.5. He was third in touchdowns with 7. He was fifth in yards per route run at 3.72. He was third in first downs, and he had the highest QB rating when targeted versus man. And then against zone, again, out of 63 qualifying wide receivers, he had the highest reception percentage versus zone, and he had the 8th highest QB rating when targeted versus zone. He's somebody, Erik, who adds a security blanket feel to the slot and to the interior of the field with his understanding of leverage, his processing, his pacing, his craftiness. There's a lot to like when you watch Josh Downs operate out of the slot for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah, I really like him because we talked about earlier controlling the middle of the field, right? And the Bills missing that type of player and that type of respect. And having a guy that can make these catches over the middle. Downs is a guy that had like a drop rate of like 4.7% according to PFF True Media.
Wild.
So he's very good over the middle. But he also commands respect. Watch on this play how many defenders have to get their eyes on him. So there's one right there in the slot over him. Watch the safety in the deep half right here. There's 2 defenders. Then watch the 2 defenders up here having to get their eyes on him. And that opens up the one-on-one up top for the other receiver, his teammate. So he commands that type of respect. And you saw it a bunch. There are teams that love to bracket him. Go watch the Florida State game. Go watch the Virginia game when he's pushing vertically. Like, they were bracketing this guy and using a lot of those vice coverages to slow this guy down.
Show that one. Show that one against Notre Dame.
Here it is. I mean, this is the type of stuff. I call him a leverage thief. He's good at using some of these picks, and then he's creative. He's a creative, I call him a problem solver. You can see it looks like man coverage here. He sees the spacing. Look him use the rub. And the guy works over the top of it, does a great job staying over the top. But guess what? He thinks on his feet and just crosses that guy over. And he's open there in the back of the end zone. He's a creative problem solver. He knows how to attack leverage. He knows how to steal leverage. I mean, I really like this guy. You know, you name some awesome stats. His short area burst. He finds the voids in zone coverage. He understands how to beat man coverage and beat that leverage. He has some vertical game to him to sneak deep. As I talked about. Let's see if I can find a couple more of these clips. Because I did a bunch on him.
I was gonna say you've done so many.
I've done so many. I'll see if I can get one of the longer ones. Oh, this one right here is just amazing. Let's see if I can get this one to play here. Probably not.
That's the problem too when you do so much work on a guy and then like you posted so many videos or clips and you're looking for that one. It's almost like a needle in a haystack sometimes trying to find that one. Like, and honestly, he's just so impressive with what he does and how he operates. And you know, here's another one of him.
Here's one right here. He's in trip set to the top of the screen. Watch him again work through that second level. He's running this crosser here, but he sees this defender driving on that. So what does he do? He works behind him. He works behind them, runs that cross route, and gets wide open for the first, like for the near the first down. Like that type of processing. Watch it from the end zone angle. Watch 33 right here. Try to drive on that crossing route, and here goes Downs right there in the middle. He just sneaks behind him for the first down. That's the type of processing and problem solving I want from a slot receiver. That's the type of separation that you want for your quarterback, right? You want him to find those areas in the zone. And then here's one. He's working deep. He's working over the top of the underneath defender, but look who's waiting on him at the third level. Get the safety, but use a little pace, a little hesitation there, and then boom, vertical, and he's getting in the back of the end zone for the touchdown. So I understand he's on the smaller side, but he plays bigger. And you said it. He's one of the better contested catch guys. And those are the type of guys you want, especially in those small windows underneath, those timing rhythm plays. Like you want that type of player. Josh Downs is hands down one of my favorite players across the board in this draft. And so if they can get him in the second round, that's where I have him. If they can somehow get him in the second round, I'm all for it. I think it was Peter King that said, hey, they could probably take him at 27. I think that's a little rich, but I'm not going to be mad because I do have a second round grade on him, first of all. And I think he would just make everyone else better, right? He would make everyone else better because teams will have to respect the middle of the field more because of how good he is from a volume perspective, but also from a consistency perspective. And that's what Josh Allen needs.
We talked about, it was night one at the Senior Bowl, and it was just you and I in the house before everybody else had gotten there. And you and I were sitting there talking about Josh Downs already and talking about like, it's early, but second round grade. Yes, second round grade. Would you take him at 27? Probably not, but he's so good, yada, yada. And that's before we even really dug into the tape like fully. And then you go into the tape. I love your, moniker for him, a problem solver. Like, and we've talked about so much this offseason of Josh Allen wanting guys that separate, that make things easier for him from I don't want to say like no anticipation standpoint, but instead of having to throw a guy open, he wants somebody who can work against man or zone, like what Cole Beasley was, a guy who just consistently found himself open. Josh Downs is that guy against a variety of coverages in a variety of ways. And then again, to drive home for people, because I know people are going to be key small. You saw it on that Notre Dame clip where he crossed up that safety like crazy in the end zone. He climbs the ladder and goes up and gets it. Drake May underthrows that ball, and Downs goes up and gets it. You'll see him dig balls out of the ground. You'll also see him go up and high point the football and dunk on dudes for that size. Like, plays bigger than the size that he's at and that he gets credit for. Would be a tremendous, tremendous fit for the Buffalo Bills. And we'll continue this conversation. And this next guy who I got, if everybody thought Josh Downs was small, I'm sure the next guy, everyone's going to be like, no chance.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up Mr. Nathaniel Tank Dell from the University of Houston, somebody who is very, very, very much on the small side. He's an outlier in almost every which way, shape, and form. And again, I understand the concerns around him. So he's 5'10", but he's 163 pounds. He is a skinny guy. Actually, let me stop a little bit because I like what you got going on here, Eric. Why don't you highlight some of the pieces you got in this spreadsheet on Mr. Nathaniel Tank Dell there?
So, I mean, Dell, you can see I have it sorted by yards per route run right here, I believe. Let's double check that, make sure I have it sorted properly. So you can see he's top, 13 there, 14 in yards per route run, which is one of those stats that we look at for wide receivers. He has a 0.48 EPA per target, which when I sort that, you can see he's pretty good there. But again, it's this one right here, first down percentage and touchdown percentage. And you can see he's got a really good number there as well. At 68.4% of his receptions, either first downs or touchdowns. So he's very good in that regard. And like you said, he may be an outlier as far as size goes, but when you're talking separators, and I don't know if there's a better separator in this draft than Tank Dell.
And that's exactly what it is. Like, so much of the conversation for Tank Dell keeps coming back to his size. And again, I understand it. I legitimately understand it. But I'm glad that you kind of led me into this. He might be the best separator in the entire draft, and he consistently separates. He can separate, at the line of scrimmage with a nice release. He can separate in his stem with some deception and some misleading. He can separate at the top of the route. He knows how to sell vertical routes with pace and body language. He's got burst. He's got some snap and some suddenness to his routes. He also reads defender leverage really well. He can see body lean and angles and use that against defenders. He had a touchdown against Navy that was one of my favorite plays, where he runs a fade and it's an incompletion in the red zone, and they run it to him again, seemingly on the very next play, and he sells it the exact same way, and he puts his foot in the ground and pivots back inside and completely jukes the hell out of the defender. You see on this clip here, him just consistently.
It's a slant. He is so good in the red zone, right? And like, he had 32 touchdowns over the course of his career. 26 of them came in situations like this in the red zone. His slants, talk about easy button plays for Josh Allen. That type of route, he consistently won, and they knew it was coming. He's just so fast in his release and stack there. He's just so good in the red zone.
He's a monster in the red zone. He led the nation in receiving touchdowns in 2022. He also, to tie into your percentage number about first downs and touchdowns, he led the nation in catches for first downs this past year in 2022. And his ability to separate is why he led the nation in receiving touchdowns. It's not because he's just some big, huge, big play guy, like where it was all 50-yard touchdowns and 40-yard touchdowns. A lot of them were in the red zone because he's just shaking dudes out of their shoes, because he's a real route runner. He is a legitimate technician when it comes to running routes. And I wish he was just like 175 or 180 pounds and it would lessen that conversation. Like, again, I get it. I do think he's an outlier from a size and frame perspective, but he separates consistently against man and against zone. His ability to function and live in those worlds. Some more numbers similar to Josh Downs. So again, out of those 63 qualifying wide receivers, Dell was fourth in reception percentage versus man coverage this past year at 73.5. First in touchdowns versus man coverage with 11. He was eighth in yards per route run versus man. He had the most first downs versus man coverage, and he had the 15th highest QB rating when targeted versus man. And that's not to say that he can't succeed against zone, because he can. Right. The point is he separates in a variety of ways. Look at me that, the way the deception there, like he sells the inside and then quickly pops it back out. He's a real route runner and a real technician. And for somebody who I think would be solid on that day 2 range, like I really like him at potentially being at that 91 spot. I don't know if he's going to go earlier or later because of the size and the frame, but I wish there was more conversation around his skill and technique, because that's what makes him win. But I do understand why there are so many, size concerns about him.
And I think that you see a lot of these plays from the slot. I still think he has area, and it's an area he can improve in when we're talking some of those slot routes, especially underneath like what the Bills are looking for. But you see flashes of it, as you talked about. He does have it. It just, they didn't use him in that way. They played more of a vertical slot game. But you can see as soon as he catches the ball, his transition from, catching it into that runner mentality, it's quick and it's sudden and he separates. And so I'm excited about that. I still think he can be even better when it comes to running routes from the slot. And he starts to, again, slow down a little more and start to set guys up, because then he's really going to create yards of separation, not just running fast. He's going to create a lot more separation at the different levels and with different layers. He's a guy that, you just put the ball in his hands, find somewhere for him on the field, a package of plays, especially early on, and he's going to make a difference. In the red zone, he's going to make a difference. There's no doubt about it. He's just a tough cover for so many guys, especially when we're talking in that low red zone. Again, he was even open there and the quarterback didn't throw it to him. So
he's an easy button in the red zone, which you wouldn't think because, oh, well, he's like 5'10", 160 something pounds. No, like if he gets a one-on-one opportunity, it's over. Like he'll win. And for a team that needed easy buttons in the red zone early in the year, like it's not always just like, oh, we'll get Darnell Washington and, chuck some fade balls to him in the red zone. Like, no, you can get Tank Dell and he can win easily in the red zone, like time and time again.
And Nat 11 says, this dude is legit. I'm not that worried about his size as long as it doesn't lead to injuries. And I think a lot of people, once the Bills got Hardy, they thought, yeah, Dell's kind of redundant. Again, go look at, I like Hardy. We pumped him up. Yeah. We've done an episode on him. But his availability is still worrisome. And so, again, that shouldn't preclude you from going out and getting other receivers, even if they are similar prototypes. Dell's one of those guys that I think will make a difference in the same way that we talked about Deontay Hardy when the Bills acquired him. So I'm going to stay on the offensive side of the ball for my next guy. I'm going to go to the tight end position. It's a very good tight end class. And this is a guy I fell in love with a couple months ago. Schoonmaker from Michigan. Tall, leaner target, more of a long strider. But I like some of his releases off the line of scrimmage, like right there. Like, let me get big here. Let's show this right here. Look how he gets off the line of scrimmage and avoids the contact against Iowa right here. Watch him work around the DN, but also around 34 right there, and then get into his route and then become available on a nice turn inside, just an in-breaking route. But look at him, how he makes that sharp cut over the middle and catches the ball behind him. You see him adjust really right there. But when I turned on his film, it was plays like this in the run game, just moving guys out against a very good defense. Iowa's defense was, top tier last year, and they've been very good the last few years. And he did a great job of digging out really good defensive ends, doing a good job getting the second level. At the point of attack, he's a monster. And I think he's one of those guys that not only will tight end coach Rob Boris love him, but Aaron Kromer is going to love some of what he does in the run game because he uses a lot of those techniques of chopping down hands and using those, butt blocks on the backside, cutoff blocks and zone runs. Very fluid. I think he's underrated when it comes to his athleticism. Very fluid in the passing game and running those routes. And you see that some of those on some of these plays and running over the middle. But he does a great job of working through that traffic as I showed you a couple minutes ago. And he's a guy that if I have an early 4th round grade on, but at the end of the 3rd round, like he's a guy I could see the Bills targeting so they can run some more of those 12 personnel sets. He's one of the better tight ends underneath like that in the 0 to 9 yard range. Be a very good complement to Dawson Knox, who is either like a guy that is a check down or outlet in the flats and run after catch type of guy, or just vertically going down the field on some of those sail concepts. This guy, Schoonmaker, is a very good complement to Dawson Knox.
That's the big selling point for me with Schoonmaker. First off, the program he comes from and the type of offense they run in Michigan, and you showed it in several of the clips, he has to function against the run. Like he has to be able to run block to be able to start and play for Jim Harbaugh and Michigan. So tick that box.
Yep.
And that's a really great piece to have as a nice tight end too. We saw what Tommy Sweeney was able to do as the tight end too. And you have a strong run blocker in Schoonmaker, but then he gives you that receiving upside because in addition to being tough and technical as a run blocker and physical in that area, he's got some size and some speed and some strength to allow him to be almost kind of like a possession receiver of sorts, like and work in those underneath areas. He finds space. He's athletic. He's got good hands. He's solid and reliable. I really think he's one of, I think he's got some low end, tight end 1 upside, but I think he's especially for the Bills, is just such a quality tight end 2 complement if you're pairing him with Dawson Knox. Like this is a 12 personnel grouping where you've got 2 tight ends that would be athletic, that are mobile, that are tough, that can block. Dawson Knox's blocking ability is something we've talked about on the show going back to the 2021 season, but Schoonmaker really ticks that box, and then his ability to consistently get open and I think he's a strong number 2 from a rookie perspective, and then it could really develop and kind of be a legitimate piece. And I'm a huge fan of 12 personnel. I think it's one of the ultimate dictation weapons for an NFL offense and offenses in general at that level. He's really intriguing in a multitude of ways because of his versatility and toughness.
So do you have any more day 2 guys, or do you want to just start rattling off some of our day 3 guys before we get out of here? Because we are running a little short on time.
A couple other day 2 guys, from an edge perspective, this is where I think you nailed it with Foskey, like especially from an archetype perspective. From a long shot archetype perspective, BJ Ojolari from LSU.
Yeah.
I know.
I was surprised you didn't pick him. I know you probably want to stay away from edge because maybe priority wise, but
yeah.
Dude, his combinations, his pass rush combinations, I like better than Nolan Smith and some of those other guys that are higher than him. I like his combinations better. Does he have a high ceiling as Nolan Smith? Probably not. But I liked Ojolari a lot more year 1 than I do Nolan Smith year 1, where he's going to rely on some of his athleticism. I like Ojolari's experience and veteran, almost wily experience. Like he's put together a lot of really good pass rush combinations. I was surprised you didn't name him, to be honest. When it came to Phil.
Honestly, he's one of my favorite dudes in the draft.
Yeah.
I thought about it. The biggest reason for me was I just, from an archetype perspective, I don't think he ticks enough boxes for the Bills to like bring him through. Like he's too bendy and fluid, like for the Bills to watch him. Like,
knock.
I watched him. He had a move against Broderick Jones against Georgia, where it's a push-pull and he extends and he dips and bends underneath Broderick Jones. And once that happened, I was like, that was awesome. And I was like, well, he's off the Bills board now. He's still young, like 21 years old, but athletic, bendy, fluid. He's got speed to go around the arc, but also quickness to get inside. And he plays with a penetration style against the run that I really like. Like, the Georgia tape is great. He plays with quickness and violence against the run and the pass. Like, everything he does is violent. Like, some of my favorite clips that I pulled and posted were of that game and against Broderick Jones, who for some is tackle 1 in this class, but at worst tackle 2 or tackle 3. And his ability to beat him with quickness. And Broderick Jones is an athletic, long type of dude. And Ojolari gets into his chest, beats him with quickness. There's a couple. Like, he's got some really fun reps. That one against Tennessee, him playing the run, reads the pulling guard, wrong arms him, gets low, makes the play in the backfield. This was nice too.
He does that a lot too. He did that a lot.
And you don't expect that, like, with regularity. This one, again against Broderick Jones, watch him make the contact and then the violence in the dip. Watch him just quickly bang. And he just pulls Jones down quickly with that left arm. And then also notice before he, it's so funny because I pulled this clip so long ago, and like as I watch it, it's all coming back to me like Celine Dion. Watch that right arm lift Broderick Jones's left arm off of him. And then once he does that, he gets the edge and then uses that left arm and just pulls himself through. Like, the strength and the body torque, it's pretty and it's also violent. And then this one against the run, I love. Again, you see violence in him jumping and dipping inside. There he is on the right side, bang, and just quickly jumps inside, makes the play. Just quickness, explosion, power, some bend. He's got some wrist control to him. He can detach from offensive tackles. He's a guy like with a good amount of upside. I don't think he's a scheme fit necessarily. I also like Felix Anudike-Uzomah, the edge from Kansas State, another dude who plays violent, plays a bit like a velociraptor. It's just archetype fits, man.
Yeah, I know. And that's we talked about it earlier in our clubhouse session where we were talking about the draft a lot. And maybe Sean McDermott taking the play calling over and the style that he wants to play, maybe they start leaning into some of those type of bendier type players. I wouldn't hold your breath, but who knows?
Until I see it, I just can't fully get behind it. It's so funny that, damn it, you being like, oh, I thought you would have done Ojolari. I wanted to. I'm just like, I just don't think it'll happen.
No, that's fair. And that was kind of the purpose tonight. The day 3 guy that I really like, and he's a guy that it started in day 3 and then just has ascended, and he damn near might slide into day 2, end of day 2. Nick Saldiveri, right tackle from Old Dominion. He plays every offensive line position. He's kind of like Ryan Bates. He played right tackle in a lot of these clips, but some of these clips you're going to see him rotate inside to guard. And he played some center before. He's another one of those high character guys that I think when we're talking archetypes, I think he probably bumps inside, but the Bills love these type of guys. Aaron Cromer loves these type of guys with positional flexibility. And I think look at that. I mean, just an incredible balance in transitioning there from when that pass rusher went from speed to power. I think he's a guy day 3 that I would pound the table for. And again, he might go day 2, but I still think he's a guy that the Bills are very high on. Who's a day 3 guy maybe that stands out for you for the Bills when we're talking maybe archetypes, either side of the ball?
If we're sticking with the offensive line pieces, I think Wanya Morris, potentially from Oklahoma, the other side of the ball, kind of like almost like an like a mini Anton Harrison, like a lot of similar characteristics from like the length and the athleticism perspective. Needs to clean some things up from a technique piece.
He's got a little nastiness to him too.
Yes, he does. Like him and I think almost a little bit more than Harrison, but you see that like finishing from a physicality and nastiness perspective with Wanya Morris. So he's somebody who I like. He's another one too. I was like, oh, he could be had like in at the 3rd or maybe even the 4th. And now it's like, is he going to go in like early day 2? Like, especially with how Saldiveri has climbed up. He's a very interesting one for me.
I like him too, because I think like even before the Senior Bowl, when we were looking at our archetypes, he's a guy that we saw he could probably transition inside 6'4" and 7/8, 317, 35 and 3/8 inch arms. He's got really long arms and quick hands against the pass rush. I like some of his sets. He's a guy, if you watch enough film on him, you're like, man, he plays kind of ugly. Like it's never like pretty.
Exactly.
He gets it done. He wins dirty, like not dirty like he's a dirty player, but
he wins ugly.
Understands how to win. Yeah, and he'll do whatever it takes to win. But some of his athleticism, when you see him get on the space, I think there's some areas there that he could definitely improve on. But he's a good one. He's another one of those guys that is an archetype fit that I could see Cromer really liking. The other guy that I want to bring up is also an offensive lineman, and we're going to stay in North Carolina. We talked about.
I'll say this is one of mine too, but I know you like him more than me, so I didn't want to say him.
Yeah, he's a guy that the Bills love. Very good balance. Asim Richards, tackle from North Carolina. Austin Gunn, the offensive line coach, assistant offensive line coach, worked him out at his pro day. Very athletic guy, like sneaky athletic. And he has really long arms as well, as you can see on some of these plays against Notre Dame. You can see that balance and athleticism. You see that him anchor down versus that power rush and then finish there against Notre Dame. I love this play right here. So you see, this is amazing. He sees a spiker come inside, right? Here's a spiker right there. Number 8's coming inside, and here's the looper. So he escorts that guy to his teammate, but then watch this looper come all the way around. Watch the athleticism. This is like that wave drill that they do at the combine. Watch him kick out wide right there. Like, that's amazing. That's an amazing set right there. And this is the type of stuff we talked about, the Bills offensive line and where they struggle, especially on those 3rd downs, on these games, these 2- and 3-man games and passing them off. Like, this is one of the better plays from an offensive lineman when we're talking these type of twists and picking that guy up and then sealing the edge and still setting the width of the pocket. And then look at the play speed. He latched his hands on. And he's like, did the ball get thrown yet? Right. Like, he's ahead of the play. This guy, if he gets it with Cromer's going to make this guy a starter in the next year or two. Like, he's that good. I think Cromer can do some really good things with a guy like Richards.
He's got the traits. He got a lot of good measurables. What I really like, just to, I mean, everything you said was accurate for me, but I wanted to add as well, like, it's nice to see him have competition on tape against dudes that are good. Like in this game against Notre Dame, he battles against Isaiah Foskey. In the game against Clemson in the ACC championship, he's got a ton of reps going up against Miles Murphy, who a lot of people like as a top 15, top 20 prospect in the first round. And I think he's somebody who I think you could realistically still get him on day 3 in that, I think probably like 4th round range, based on some of the buzz that's going around him now. But I mean, kind of take the buzz with a grain of salt. I like the long-term piece with him, like somebody who comes in, have him compete against Spencer Brown. Even if he doesn't beat him, I think you have the long-term potential, like you mentioned with Cromer, because of his traits, because of his tools, what you can build upon, and the depth and everything you have in his ability, have flexibility and versatility. Like Oh, I like that rep, that Virginia rep there. Sorry, I wanted to stop. I knew it was coming, and so I just got to stop. So I wanted to see it. Yeah, he's got some quality reps, and it's unfortunate that he's another name that continues to kind of trickle up draft boards. Another one for me from a receiver perspective. I really like Jonathan Mingo, but he continues to climb up boards. We talked about him on the show. I don't want to drill too home on that. One more interior guy for me who I really like. Kobe Turner from Wake Forest.
Yeah, you've been pounding the table for him for months. Yeah.
I don't think he's going to end up being a Bill. He plays like a velociraptor, and I think he's a really ideal third defensive tackle in a rotation for a team. And for a team like the Bills that rotate defensively, especially on the interior and holistically across, like his ability to just function in sweet, we got some clips. So this is him lined up. He's over 71 right now. He kind of slants on the snap, and you'll watch him dive inside, reads the play, and he just plays with his hair on fire, spins out of it immediately, and then gets by and makes the tackle. Like everything he does.
Great tracking there, yeah.
Everything he does is at 110 miles an hour, which sometimes can lead him to kind of get in some trouble. Like he will get too far upfield, and almost kind of like he's kind of going into business for himself and freelancing a little bit with what he'll do. But this one is wild. So he's in the 3-tech. There you go. You got him highlighted. He gets dropped. He drops to the ground and then puts his knee in the ground and sheds the guard while he's on the ground, and then pops up, goes low on the back, and makes the tackle. Like he's unorthodox in a lot of ways. Again, I think he needs some more discipline. You need to rein him in a little bit and give him some refinement and coach him up a bit. But he just plays like a velociraptor. Everything is hard. It's physical. It's violent. He's also got, there's another one too. Just getting, so he's lined up, head up there, right over 74 over that left guard. And you just see on the snap, low, violent, gets into his man, handles the double team. Doesn't for a guy who's on the smaller side, you see him hold up well against double teams. There's another one in this game where he holds up in the red zone on the goal line. Like you don't see him get taken out of the play. You know, not the best feed block in the world in double team, but he's got the ability to hold strong at the point of attack, the ability to make a play. Oh, this is that one. Look at the ankle flexion. Look at him get low. He drops his knees, and he eventually gets driven back on this one, but he makes the lineman have to work for it. Like he just gums up the works because everything he does is
he did his job here.
Exactly.
He did it.
Exactly.
He did his job there. Kept
gummed up the
clean.
Works. Boom. It's ugly. It's messy. He made it ugly. He made it messy. He plays violent. He's also got some fun, stats as well. Out of the 204 interior defensive linemen in 2022, he was 25th in pass rush productivity. He was 14th in total pressures. He was tied for 18th in win percentage. And then from a run defense standpoint, he was 4th in stop percentage out of 216 interior defensive linemen. I like him a lot just as a rotational guy because he's got some ability to anchor. He does a lot of things in a lot of ways, but it's just the violence, it's the physicality, it's the effort, it's the intensity. I think he'd make a really good, third man in a rotation on the interior with some potential, number 2 upside.
Yeah, my final guy, that's probably day 3. I know the Bills had him in a top 30 visit, is Justin Shorter, 6'4", 235 pounds, 4.55 40. I think his ceiling is as a true X receiver, more of a long strider. So very similar to like Gabe Davis, where it doesn't look like he's running fast, but he's covering some ground, especially at 6'4". He does a great job of getting vertical and catching DBs sleeping. I really like his hands. Honestly, he's got a 5.5% drop rate. He only had 6 drops on 177 targets, 82.375 inch wingspan, 33 3/4 inch arm length. So very big, long wide receiver. Could do a lot of the stuff that Gabe Davis did. You saw a lot of glance routes off RPOs over the middle, very reliable over the middle. But he does have that speed to lift coverages still. And again, very much like Gabe Davis and a willing blocker in the run game. I thought his numbers could have been even better if Anthony Richardson had time. If Anthony Richardson had some time to push the ball down the field, there were routes where Shorter was just running away from dudes, and Richardson didn't have time to get the ball down the field to Shorter. Like this glance route, look at that over the middle on the RPO. Like this is the type of stuff that obviously the Bills have run for many years now. I really like this guy. Big, long, reliable as a pass catcher. And again, he can pitch in on the run game. A very good player. When you look a lot of the advanced stats, he's up there again for his reliability and production, the amount of games he's played in. He's a solid player that I think the Bills are really high on, especially when we're talking day 3 targets at wide receiver.
And you mentioned like the archetype. We're at the home stretch here on the pre-draft process. I'm falling apart. You mentioned the archetype fit, and that's so important when you're looking at guys on that day 3 piece. You're looking at guys. It's positional need and best player available, but it's also, again, like, does this guy tick the boxes for what my team or what a team looks like? And
yeah, especially these late round guys, right? Like that's what they're looking for, scheme type fits, right?
Yeah, you're looking for somebody who those day 3 guys, a lot of them are going to kind of cut their teeth on special teams, but if they're going to make it offensively or defensively, teams want those guys that make some kind of a puzzle piece fit schematically into what they already have. It increases the floor, and it creates the reason that, you know, DeMar Hamlin and Dane Jackson were successful in this Bills defense, despite being late round picks, because they come from Pat Narduzzi's Pitt defense, which translates very well to the Buffalo Bills defense. And, you know, Shorter is a guy from a frame and size perspective and from a skill set piece that, like you mentioned, like ticks a lot of those archetype boxes, and it makes sense on day 3, especially depending on what happens with wide receiver early, depending on what happens with DeAndre Hopkins. Oh, I'm going to stop because that's an awesome comment from James. James says, awesome analysis, guys. The best, with an exclamation point. Let's support these guys' hard work by everyone smashing that like button. James gets it. James is arguably the smartest person in the room right now. And James, we appreciate the
you guys need to step your game up and be like James. All right?
Everybody be better and be like James. But sincerely, thank you for being here and thank you for the kind words. Shorter ticks a lot of those archetype boxes, which makes a lot of sense on day 3 when you're
tracking. Look at the tracking on this post route. Like, this is ridiculous. Over the shoulder. Look at him looking back. How difficult that is.
This is the first one I ever saw of him, and like I initially was watching it from a Richardson perspective, and then as I kept watching it because it's so pretty from the end zone angle, I was like, actually, that's good tracking from the receiver. This was my first Shorter experience, and this one got me hyped.
Yeah, I like him late in the draft.
Defender draped on him. The defender making contact early, getting a hand on the shoulder, could easily distract him. Doesn't happen. He brings it in.
Yeah, it's this draft is here, guys. We rattled off as much as we could. We don't take too much time. We went a little long. Greg and Aaron are coming up here in a few minutes, but I've been off the last couple of weeks. I had a lot to get off my chest. All right, so we didn't get to everyone. We had to kind of move through it, but as I said, we went long. And we're excited for the draft and stand by for a few more minutes. Greg and Aaron are up. We appreciate all the support, you guys hanging out with us tonight. We didn't have too much film. We just brought up kind of what we've been working on and just dumped it on you guys the last 2 hours, basically. Here it is. But yeah, if you guys are interested in more content, video content on some of the guys that we mentioned, maybe we didn't get to show you some film. I'm telling you, search our handles and you're going to find a lot of that film. We like to show our work. You may not agree with us, but when we say these comments, strengths, weaknesses on these players, we show it. We show the work. So that's the most I ask, from you guys is, hey, at least respect that. You may not always agree. Jason usually does. He's been with us for a long time. Jason just says great analysis. Thanks, guys. No, we like to thank you guys. We couldn't do this without you.
Absolutely. I love the show your work comment. That's my favorite thing on Twitter, because someone will be like, man, this player does not play like that. I'm like, cool. Can you show me the video clips backing up like what you think? Show me your all 22 analysis. Show me your work, please.
Yeah, it's just always just like, okay, well then here's the link. This is what I have. And we saw a comment earlier, like, do you guys just watch clips? No, we watch the entire all 22 and then we post the clips. I use my clips as my notes. So all the notes you saw on the screen, those are my notes in video form. So we always like to show our work. Again, you may not agree with us, but we show our work, and those are the conclusions we came to based on the film we watched. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you use your clips as your notes. Like I clip things that I think are representative of who the player is holistically. I'm not out here just clipping highlights to be like, oh, look at this guy. And then it's like, no, he really only did this once and he sucks. And I'm just lying for clout and for attention on Twitter. No, the work is put in consistently by us here on the show. And we appreciate all the kind words and you folks appreciating our work. Thank you, Daniel. Daniel saying, great show, Eric. Excellent coverage and analysis. We appreciate the hell out of you. Thank you very much. Yeah, so we had some film in on this one. But Eric, as we go forward, starting with next week's episode of the Film Room, there's no better place to be.
Yeah.
We're going to be – the Bills are going to be making some important draft picks this weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We will have you covered here in the Cover One Film Room live next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, breaking down anything and everything you need to know. We'll see who the Bills pick, and then we'll coordinate and lay it out like who we're going to cover each week and how we break it out. But the Film Room will have you covered for the film breakdowns you need to figure out who these players are, what they bring from a skill set and scheme fit perspective, the hows and whys of whoever the Bills take in this draft weekend. We will have you covered here in the Cover One Film Room. Also check out the Cover One channel in general for some content before next week's Film Room. I know Eric mentioned it in the lead-in. He'll be doing some breakdowns on some of the players. I'm sure there will be content being pumped out between tomorrow night and Friday and Saturday and Sunday on some of those folks, and then we'll knock it all out with the Film Room next week. Also, just in case you folks don't know, live here on the Cover One channel, we will have a live stream of not streaming the draft, but covering the draft content tomorrow night, starting live. Round one starts. That'll be on the Air Raid Hour channel. Friday night, we will have you covered in the same way. That'll be on the Disguised Coverage channel Friday night. Saturday, we'll have you covered for day 3. That'll be on the Going Deep channel. And then live tomorrow night after night 1, live Friday night after night 2, and live Saturday after day 3. Myself and Greg Thompson will be going live with high-level analysis of the draft and talking a lot of puzzle pieces and some scheme fits and some initial reaction there as well. So there's a lot of content coming your folks' way these next 3 nights and days as we get forward towards the draft. But this has been a tremendous episode. We appreciate you folks for being here, the kind words, the presence, the back and forth with each other, the questions for us, and the engagement with us. We appreciate the hell out of you. For those who didn't join us live on this show, that's cool. Thank you very much for your post-live view, listen, download. If you're here on YouTube right now, please, and thank you. Whether you're here live or watching post-live later, please drop a like on this video. It goes a long way towards helping us to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. If you're on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, please rate and review. Also, please, and thank you, subscribe. We've talked about it here on the show. We had some technical snafus on the podcasting side of things where some of our links got broken. So please, and thank you. Subscribe, rate and review and all that stuff. Tell your family, friends, and loved ones about how awesome this show is. If you thought the show was terrible, fix yourself and be better, and tell your enemies about the show and try and ruin their day. We're going to get out of here. Stay tuned on the channel for Greg and Aaron coming up live in about 10 minutes at 9 p.m. This has been another episode of the Cover One Film Room for myself, Anthony Prohaska, for Mr. Eric Turner. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well, staying safe, be kind to one another, take care of one another. Godspeed. Merry Draftmas. And as always, go Bills.